Keldon Johnson just got paid, and what is some latest in the Spurs news and notes?
You are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Spurs right here on the Locked On NBA Network. I am your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs writer for Ken's 5 San Antonio. Glad to have you back. Happy Monday. I know, start of the work week, but we're here to help you ease into that. We'll be talking your favorite topic, the silver and black, your San Antonio Spurs. And what are we talking about today? Keldon Johnson got paid. Oh, he got paid a lot of money. He recently agreed, reportedly, to a 4-year contract extension. How much was it worth? What does it break down to? What are some pros and cons about Keldon Johnson and the Spurs inking this deal? And then we'll dive into some Spurs news and notes. And fans need to understand that Sohan picked his top 5 European players. So let's not get ahead of ourselves, start getting angry because he didn't list Manu Ginobili, but he did list a Spur that I think Spurs fans will like to hear. Who is helping me today? He is the one, the only, the man who has a man cave that I am jealous about every day because he sends me photos of it and it keeps on getting better, bigger and better. He is Joe Garcia with Two Shots Podcast. Joe, you're making me jealous. Your man cave is just keeps on getting bigger, better, and badder.
Well, I tried, Jeff. I'm trying, man. You know, I'm putting up some more pictures. And actually, I just framed the Optimus Prime picture that I had sent to you a while back. You know.
Oh yeah, that's nice. Yeah,
it's one of those that I got at the Alamo City Comic Con. So I got that framed, and the other picture of the X-wing fighter from one of those local artists there. So that's going to be going up. I'll take a picture and send it to you.
You're gonna make me more jealous, Joe. By the way, Joe, did you see that tweet that Amazon Prime movies, something like that? It's like one of the, I think it was an Amazon Prime tweet, whatever it was. They asked, hey, what movie scene still gets you so upset until today? I retweeted that with a photo of Hot Rod diving in to try to fight Megatron versus that scene still angers me because Hot Rod doesn't interfere. Maybe Prime finishes the job. Joe, your thoughts?
Yeah, no doubt, man. But you know, let's not get Jimenez involved with this, man, because
oh yeah, bad idea. Bad idea.
That would be a bad idea. But yeah, I get you on that one because had he not interfered, maybe Prime wouldn't have died in the iconic scene, you know, from the movie. And the kids that you know nowadays probably don't know, but if you don't know, you need to go back and watch the greatest animated flick of all time, which is the original Transformers, the movie.
Yep, that is true. 1986 still holds up to today. The only one part that I still cringe about is the musical number with Weird Al Yankovic. Yeah, that's the one. I'm like, yeah, you didn't need to put that in there. But other than that, yeah, it's a great show. But yeah, enough about our nerdum. Let's go ahead and dive into some Spurs talk here. Now, we're going to look at the pros and cons in just a little bit, Joe. But you know, you look at what just has been reported. Keldon Johnson inks a 4-year contract extension. Yeah, he's here for the long haul. About, well, grand total, 10 million. You figure about, you know, for the average salary, I should say. Starts off, you know, your first thought is like, wow, you know, that's a lot of money. You know, 4 years. $80 million. But on the market, that is actually a great deal for the Spurs and for obviously Keldon because he gets paid. Joe, when you heard the news, what was your general reaction?
Well, I guess it kind of dispels what some fans had been saying, including myself, not saying, but thinking, you know, where does Keldon fit with the current San Antonio Spurs timeline? Is he part of the long, you know, haul, you know, where they're going to go ahead and keep him in their plans for the foreseeable future? And by extending him, I guess that answers all those questions. You know, he currently fits with the Spurs timeline, you know, with this younger core of players. So that, and the second thing I thought about is I wonder if the deal that they gave him is kind of front end loaded, meaning that maybe the first 2 years they're going to go ahead and pay him somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe 22.5 million.
Right.
And then as you know, the contract goes and wanes on, the two latter part of the years of his contract, he might get paid 17.1 million. So the Spurs can kind of help, themselves with some of that cap space in the 2026-2027 season when his contract expires. So, I mean, either way, the collective bargaining agreement, I think, it says that the players are going to wind up getting a little bit more money now. So if they go ahead and extend it now versus later, they also save themselves a little bit of money. And if they want to trade him at some juncture, that kind of helps make him more attractive to teams in case that does happen. But either way, I think it was a smart move by the Spurs.
Yes. Again, pros and cons in just a few seconds. But
Yeah.
if we we'll look at some of the specific numbers. So when the extension begins, which is the 23-24 season, because he still has 1 more year on the rookie scale,
Yeah.
I believe. Yeah. So 23-24 season, 17.8 million. In the 24-25 season, 19.2, 25-26, 20.7, and then the final year of that extension, 22.1. So it's actually backloaded. So
Okay.
he's getting more at the back end. And then, of course, in year 2027, he'll be unrestricted free agent. Now, the Spurs want to trade him. They can, but they cannot trade him until January 16, 2023. So he does have his trade restriction right now. Overall, I think it was very team friendly. I think it was very good to, obviously, we can't repeat this enough, but Keldon Johnson got paid. So, of course, he has a big smile on his face. But I like the fact that they see him as a big piece moving forward as of right now. We'll dive into that later. They're willing to dedicate to him. They're willing to keep him around. They're pushing him forward in the spotlight now. He'll likely be the guy for San Antonio now that DeJounte Murray has been traded. All in all, a great deal. And then it came like the news hit like late at night. What was it, like on a Friday night, Joe? I mean, it was like super late, and
It was like 11
it
something, almost
yeah,
midnight.
yeah,
Yeah.
close to midnight, and all Spurs fans that were still awake, were all riled up. All in all, a good deal. But are there cons to this, or there should be something that Spurs fans should be worried about down the road? We're going to dive in. Joe Garcia, he is with Two Shots Podcast. And yeah, we're looking at Keldon Johnson getting paid. And by the way, thank you for making Locked On Spurs your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts. And we'll get back. Joe's going to give us his pros and cons. I'm going to give you my pros and cons. But before we do that, BetOnline is your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's NHL playoffs and Major League Baseball. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. And BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, news, and season. Joe, they even have the lines already. If any of the three rookies for the Spurs are going to be chasing the Rookie of the Year award, they're already out, and that's how ahead of the game they are. Go to BetOnline right now if you want to put some money on that and much, much more. It is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports and events, including MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today or go use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. We're back with Joe Garcia. He is with Two Shots Podcast. Make sure to follow him on Twitter at Two Shots Podcast. And before we continue talking about Keldon Johnson, which NFL stars move the betting line the most? Starting July 18th, Locked On gives you the 50 most valuable players in the NFL from the odds makers at BetOnline. Available July 18th on Locked On NFL, wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Joe, first of all, aside from the fact that I'm jealous of your man cave, can you even fathom the idea of getting paid that kind of money? Like, that's just crazy. Like, we'll never see that kind of money in our lifetime, Joe.
No, man. And if you have that much money, you got to invest, dude, because you just have that sitting in a bank. It's going to dwindle pretty quickly due to taxes. So you got that to worry about. More money, more problems, man. So I'm happy where I'm at.
Joe, you know about that, because you have that problem every day, right?
No, unfortunately, I do not. But I mean, I wish I did. I wish I did.
Well, let's go and dive into some pros and cons about Keldon Johnson getting an extension. So Joe, we'll start with you. You are our guest. You kind of highlighted a few things, but dive a little deeper on it. What are some pros that you're seeing? Why is this a good thing for the Spurs moving forward?
I think it's going to be a good thing for the Spurs moving forward for the fact that at least they have a solid piece that they know they're going to have on their roster for the foreseeable future for the next 4 years. And that is kind of like an insurance claim
Hmm.
for kind of a little bit of insurance for the Spurs, just in case some of the other assets that they've acquired via trade, via the draft, they decide to go ahead and, let's say, trade these assets away. At least they have Keldon there. So the thing is, now that they paid him, which is a pro, another pro is they go ahead and start moving into the
Hmm.
next season, this for upcoming season once it's over. The projected cap space is going to fall somewhere in the neighborhood of about 61.8 million, just a little under 62 million for the next off season. And that's also assuming that maybe that the Spurs wind up getting a number one pick, which everyone is hopeful for.
Hmm.
They're looking for Wembayama, to
Right.
join the San Antonio Spurs in the NBA draft. But who knows if the Spurs get that number one pick or not? But either way, the win is they get Keldon at a hometown discount right now before the prices go up, and they're looking good as far as their cap space goes into the next off season with a little under $62 million. So that's a win-win in my book.
Right. I'll take the con side of things. Um, I would call it maybe con is the wrong word. I should say we've been down this road before, and what I mean by that is fans get all thrilled that young player, is signing an extension with the Spurs, and what happens? He gets dealed down the road. We saw this with Derek White. Remember, Derek White for a while, Joe, was the highest paid Spur, higher than DeJounte, higher than Keldon, and he got traded. We thought they would never see DeJounte Murray get traded from the San Antonio Spurs, and he did. And by the way, he signed a big extension prior to getting dealed. Could history repeat itself? Could this just be another thing where the Spurs, re-sign or extend out a young player and then down the road gets dealed? We gone through this rodeo before. We've seen this. And again, con maybe is a wrong word. Maybe I should say keep it in the back of your head kind of thing. That don't be surprised if down the road you start hearing rumblings about Keldon getting dealt or traded. Again, we never thought that DeJounte would get traded, and he did. We didn't think that Derek White would get traded after signing that big contract, and his was pretty large too, and he got traded. This is part of a rebuild. I mean, and I also bring it up too because Joe, and Keldon is a good player. He has a lot of upside, uh, but he only averaged about 17 points per game last year. And look, kudos to him. He increased his 3-point shooting. I think he ended the season 40%. But Joe, we got to keep this in mind, right? That the Spurs have shown in recent history that they will deal some of these young players.
Yeah, that they have. They can trade anybody pretty much at any time. Of course, Keldon
Hmm.
can't be traded until what, 23, 24
Yeah.
season from what you were looking at right
Yeah,
now.
yeah. Well, until January 16th, 2023.
Yeah,
So,
there you go.
yeah, yeah. I mean, he can still be traded unless in this extension we haven't heard about a no trade clause. But it is. I mean, he could be traded at when the contract extension begins, which is
Yeah.
23, 24. But the point is, Joe, we're trying to get at is Spurs fans got to keep in mind that this is part of a rebuild, right, Joe? They've shown that they can deal some of these players, or even let them walk. They let Lonnie Walker walk. Uh,
It was time.
so it was time. Yeah, exactly. But Joe, what are your thoughts on that? That Brian Wright has shown that he will trade some rising stars. We saw it with White, and we saw it with Murray.
I think that's good for the team moving forward because it's getting closer to them, and it was getting closer to them, kind of
Hmm.
getting that line in the sand drawn. What are we going to wind up doing? In other words, the team. What is the team going to wind up doing? Do they want to be delegated to not being good enough to win the playing game, or are they just going to go on full rebuild? Brian Wright finally, by dealing Derek and now dealing,
Mhm.
DeJounte, finally said, you know what, we need to go on full rebuild mode.
Mhm.
So I'm glad with the trajectory that the team has taken. They've taken that leap. The only thing that is kind of upsetting to fans, and including myself, is you kind of feel like the last 4 years were kind of a waste. Why
Mhm.
did it take so long for them to finally
Right.
decide this is the trajectory that we're going to take as a team moving forward? They could have done this sooner rather than wait till later. But
Mhm.
I think one of the things that really caught their attention was this upcoming draft class. It's going to be one of
Mhm.
the best that the league has seen probably in the last, I'd say, 20 years. It's
Right.
going to be chock full of stars. And I think the Spurs finally decided, you know what, we need to make the change right now. So, that goes without saying that anybody at any time can get traded, because the
Mhm.
Spurs also want to be able to take on bad contracts, maybe, if that is something that they're thinking about. And by having the flexibility with the cap space and being able to trade players, you can actually be that third team in a three-team deal, that can take on a bad contract for picks, So we're going to see what the Spurs are going to do in the future, because now they can be a little bit more aggressive with things, because they do have the cap space to go along with maybe some attractive assets. So I like the direction that Brian Wright is going. I look forward to him being more aggressive, possibly even in the trades, the trade deadline, before the trade deadline occurs, this upcoming season.
Yeah, this is some information from a website called Pro Profitix. I think I pronounced it right. And it's talking about Keldon Johnson's extension. So his current team contract, is 2.1 million, as you mentioned earlier. But they value his, abilities, his skill set, his level in the NBA at a real time, legit contract at 25.6. So, yeah, the Spurs are definitely getting a bargain. There's probably some Spurs fans out there that think that he's just overpaid. You look at, we mentioned the numbers, 17 points per game last season. What about it? 6.1 rebounds, 2.1 assists per game. So, is that a bit too much? Maybe if you balance what the contract was versus, at least through this website, saying his real contract value is, real time contract value is, Spurs definitely got a bargain. And that's what the Spurs have to do. I mean, they're a small market. They got to figure out ways to get team friendly deals, and we're seeing this. Joe, any concern that down the road that Keldon could go the way DeJounte did, in the sense of, DeJounte, you're really, really good, as we saw, we don't want to waste your good years. We'll mutually agree to a deal and we'll send you somewhere else. Yeah, because the same thing happened to Keldon. Hey, Keldon, look at how much you've grown. Look how much you flourished. We're still in this rebuild. You're about to enter your prime years. Let's get you elsewhere so you can go and chase that ring while we still rebuild. You think that could be a possibility?
It could be a real possibility, because any, let's say, any player that's signed up with Clutch Sports, and Keldon
There it is,
uh,
right there. Yeah.
agent is working for Clutch Sports. Same thing with DeJounte. DeJounte went and told the Spurs that, hey, more than likely, I'm not going to sign the Supermax if you offered it to me in what, two
Right.
years from now. So they decided to deal the kid now, because his trade value was sky high. Same thing could happen with Keldon. Maybe Keldon decides, you know what, this just isn't working for me. I don't want to be part of a rebuild. He goes into the front office and says, I want to be traded. That could happen too. But, the thing is that the Spurs right now extending him, at least that they're getting that discount, because as you stated, I'm looking at the same thing from Profit X, and
Hmm.
they're on Twitter. That's where looking at the
Hmm.
information from. If you want to follow them, you can go to Profit TXAI. That's her Twitter handle. And yeah, from looking at the projection, his real time contract is, worth 25.6 mil. So Spurs saved a little bit of money by extending him now. So all these factors going in, looking forward, not looking forward, but looking towards the future. If he decides he doesn't want to be part of a rebuild, it's more attractive than, a
Right.
team wanting to take on a more lucrative contract.
Mhm.
So the Spurs do have some leverage there. That they can say, hey, we'll go ahead and if he wants to be traded, we can trade him, and we maybe get some picks in return.
Mhm.
Or maybe they take on a bad contract and picks. I
Right.
mean, either way, they have some flexibility, so it's a win-win for
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, and again, a team-friendly contract, if they decide to trade him down the road, is definitely a team-friendly for a potential team looking to make a deal. We're here with Joe Garcia, right here on Locked On Spurs, and we're discussing Keldon Johnson and the news that he is getting a 4-year, $80 million contract extension with the Spurs. When we get back, we're going to be wrapping up our thoughts on that and dive into some Spurs news and notes, including Jeremy Sohan giving his top 5 European players. We're back with Joe Garcia right here on Locked On Spurs, and we're talking Keldon Johnson, Spurs, and that contract extension. Overall, Joe, what grade would you give this for the Spurs and Keldon Johnson? This deal to extend him out 4 more years.
I'd probably give it a solid A, man. I mean, I think it was a smart move. So kudos to Brian Wright and the Spurs front office for making that happen.
Right. Earlier, just a quick correction. I said the average salary for this contract is 10 million. Correction, it's 20 million. 4 years at 80-20. So there you have it. Yeah, for me, I like it. It keeps him around a little longer. It's an obvious signal to him that the Spurs are investing in him. They believe he is part of this rebuild. I mean, look at Lonnie Walker. He went on to meet the media out in Los Angeles, and he said that he didn't think that he was a part of this rebuild at all. But for Keldon Johnson, they do think he is. Look, he's an Olympic gold medal winner. Should be taking the next step in his career. Hopefully he'll have a DeJounte Murray breakout season type next season. He's working hard in the gym. I've been told that he's been really in contact with Devin Vassell as far as helping lead this team. He went on ESPN recently, Joe, saying that he understands that this is a rebuild. He gets it, that he wants to be a part of it, that he wants to take the leadership mantle, that he's looking forward to working out with the new kids. So, and he's really embedded in the city of San Antonio. He's part of a committee with the protecting the San Antonio rivers. He's deeply involved with the Linear High School out in San Antonio, and he's active in the community. He'll just, I think, Joe, he just goes to boxing matches. He goes to sneaker conventions like on his own. Like he doesn't need handlers to be, chasing him down. Like, oh, don't do this, don't do that. He just goes out and gets involved. So overall, a good win for everybody and involved. And yeah, I agree with you. I give it a solid A.
Hey,
With
but
a
the big
concern,
question are we gonna see a Keldon Johnson mural pop up now somewhere in
there's
San Antonio?
there's one already on the south side at
Probably
that
at Rudy's
seafood.
Seafood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's one there, but hey, Joe, that mural down there, it needs a revision because a lot of these, Lonnie's gone, Demar's gone, DeJounte's gone. So yeah, they need to fix that up.
Shut up, Jeff. Shut up.
They need to
It's
fix
gonna
that
be funny
all up.
looking at that mural. It's like all these guys aren't here no more. So they're just
I
gonna have
know.
blank spaces or something.
Blank spaces. But yeah. All right. So, but we want to hear what you think. What do you think about Keldon Johnson's contract? Overpaid? Underpaid? Much to do about nothing, considering the same thing happened to Derek White and DeJounte Murray. Let Joe know on Twitter at Two Shots Podcast. Let me know on Twitter at Jeff G Spurs Zone. Let's get into some Spurs news and notes, Joe. Where was this when we were growing up? The NBA announced that they're starting a junior NBA league. It's just like the NBA, just with teams and team branded jerseys and names, on the back of those kids' jerseys. Leagues, the whole works is just on a junior level for the kids 6 through 15, I believe. And the Spurs are being a part of this. They'll be part of the launch of this new league. Joe, we should have had this when we were kids.
No, man, we were just a bunch of bad kids though when we were younger, man. We're all
Say that they don't. The audience doesn't need to hear that, Joe.
We're a different breed of kid growing up in the 80s, man. It's we were bad, dude. So I don't think we would have lasted a day in that NBA league. They would
I
say,
know.
come get your son, man. Get this kid out of here.
Get him out of here. Yeah. So if you want to go check it out and enroll your kid, Just go to kens5.com/Spurs. It is all there. All the information you need is right there. In other Spurs news, Chris Bosh decided to, put out a tweet, Joe, and just kind of communicate just with emojis. And basically, he put out an emoji tweet, and it was like a hand, and it was a basketball, and it was fire, then it was a guy, then another guy, then an arrow. And you're like, well, what is this? What is this? And he interpreted it. So basically, he just used emojis to describe the Ray Allen 3-point shot in the 2013 NBA Finals against the Silver and Black. Spurs fans did not take too kindly about what Chris Bosh had to tweet out, Joe.
Well, I can see why, but I mean, regardless of how we feel about that shot, it is one of the best shots, clutch shots in an NBA Finals game, along with the .4 fiasco,
Oh,
so
yeah.
I mean, you might not like it, but I mean, you can't deny that it is a clutch shot. And unfortunately, it's right over Tony Parker, man. Like, God.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm glad you brought up Tony Parker because Jeremy Sohan recently put out there in an interview with NBA Europe his all-time starting 5 European players. I'm going to make this very clear because when the article went up at kens5.com/Spurs, Spurs fans got all, why didn't he mention Manu? Where's Manu on the list? Well, Manu is South American. He's from Argentina. He's not European. So who made the list for Jeremy Sohan? Let's tell Joe, and let's see if he agrees with the young man from Poland. Tony Parker is on his list, Joe.
Okay.
Nikola Jokic, Luka Doncic, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Drazen Petrovic. Your thoughts?
I mean, I like the list, don't get me wrong, but you got to kind of put some of the OGs in there. I mean, one of the first European players to come into the league and actually garner quite a bit of attention was the OG himself, Sarunas Marciulionis. Why didn't you put him in there?
Or where was Dirk? Dirk Nowitzki.
Dirk definitely deserves to be there. But what about Arvydas Sabonis? I mean, God, if you saw what he was able to do when he came over and played with the Portland Trailblazers. I mean, this guy was huge, and the way he was able to pass that ball, it was a thing of beauty. But he came into the league a little too late, a little bit later in his career. Had he come in his prime, I mean, he'd probably be in the NBA Hall of Fame. But Sarunas Marciulionis and Arvydas Sabonis definitely deserve to be in that list somewhere.
Yeah, Dirk as well. I mean, it's a tough list. I mean, you can't deny what Joker's done. I mean, you can't. I mean, he's back-to-back MVPs. Mr. Triple Double. For a guy his size, but he's so dynamic on the offensive end, 3-point shots, middies, assist. And same thing for Giannis.
Hey, how come he didn't put in Tony Kukoc? He deserves to be on the list.
Yeah, well, there's that. Yeah. Kukoc, great 6-man for the Bulls during their heyday. It's a tough list, man. In that interview, he said that he could keep going, but he just wants to keep it like that. I think he's aware that there's so many names out there, European names. And again, European, not Manu Ginobili. Manu Ginobili, South American. Yeah, I put it out there on Twitter, Joe, and the Spurs fans were like, he didn't mention Manu Ginobili. I mean, yeah. Manu played in the Euro League. He played it with the Italian league back in his younger days, but he was not European. So if you want to chime in on that list, we'll tell you how to chat with us in just a few seconds. And finally, so Spurs, Joe, and their new partner, Self Financial, they're giving away money. Did you know this?
No.
They're giving away $5,000. And all you have to do is just enter to win a chance. That's right. The Spurs and Self Financial, they have a contest or like a giveaway, if you should say. It's called Building Your Dreams, and the idea is that the Spurs and Self Financial want to help people build their dreams, realize their dreams. So whether that's just to pay off your student loan debt, pay off a mortgage, pay off some credit card debt, they're giving away $5,000 to 3 lucky people. And all you got to do is go visit them, and I'll give you the website in just a few seconds. But Joe, I mean, what can you do with $5,000 in your cash pocket right now?
Tell them to bring me my
probably
money.
go out and buy me a really nice gaming laptop because I am in need of a new
There
laptop.
you go. All right. Oh, fine. You do a lot of
Editing.
work on your editing and whatnot. So yeah, for sure. But yeah, you want to go to the website again. I'll give you that in a few seconds. But yeah, the contest ends July 20th, so you got just a couple more days to enter, and you got to tell them why you should be selected for $5,000. Look, the contest rules are there. I know you got to follow some of their social media platforms, but you want to go to spurs.com/building dreams. Go there right now and check it out. And hopefully, good luck to you, Joe. I might enter Joe. I might.
You know what?
I'm gonna put on there. I'm gonna put. I need $5,000 to keep up with Joe's man cave.
No, I got the perfect thing, and we're gonna spend $5,000. I'll tell them we need that so we can build us a life-size little drone. You know that drone that they show that guy flying on all around New York City? We need to go and build one of those. Yeah.
Looks like the Goblin glider.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly, dude. We need to try one of those.
That's a great use of money right there.
Yeah,
that's great.
Somebody might get hurt, but I mean, we'll all give it a go, you know.
He is Joe Garcia with Two Shots Podcast. Joe, tell everybody they can chat with you.
Well, they can chat with me on Twitter. You can reach me at Two Shots Podcast, and also you can check out our website, Two Shots Podcast, where we are releasing new episodes. We just recorded a new episode last week. It is available on all major podcast platforms.
Before I let you go, would you, if you still had an LMA jersey, would you still wear it around San Antonio?
Yeah, I mean, why not? You know, he didn't do nothing.
Okay.
He didn't do was wrong like the Deuce, number 2 did. So I'd wear it.
All right. Okay, fine. If you had I think you know what your answer is. If you had a Kawhi Leonard jersey in your closet, would you still wear that in San Antonio?
No, unless he came back, then I mean, I'd be like, oh, all's forgiven, Kawhi. I'd take that jersey out and wear it proudly because we're instantly that much better, and possibly in the conversation of winning a chip.
Well, I'm glad you helped settle that because a Spurs fan on Twitter at HicksEric7 decided to rile up the fan base. He took a picture of himself wearing an LMA jersey, and for the most part, fans were okay with it, just like you were. But then he took a photo of him wearing a Kawhi Leonard jersey, and needless to say, he got some pushback for his. And he's wearing the camo Kawhi jersey. Remember the old alt jersey, camo jersey there?
I know why the Spurs, they had that agreement with, USAA, and, they had military night and whatnot, which was great and all. But, man, the jerseys were kind of, they weren't the fan favorites. Let's put it like that. But, number 2, I get why fans are going to give them some pushback. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I've gotten over the hurt, so it's like, still some bad blood there, though, Jeff.
All right. Make sure to subscribe to Locked On Spurs wherever you get your favorite podcast, Google Play, Stitcher, iTunes, and now on YouTube, and on the Ken's 5 YouTube page, and on the Ken's 5 Plus app. Yes, you can get all of the Locked On Spurs shows on the Ken's 5 Plus app. And thanks for making Locked On Spurs your first listen each and every day. We'll be talking about your summer Spurs. Yes, we know they finished up their slate of games out in Las Vegas, but we had to get a show in about Keldon Johnson's extensions. That's what we just did. We'll start looking at some players, how the kids do out there, even though they went 1-4. We'll dive into all the summer league action in the upcoming days. For your second listen, get up to date on all the latest news and rumors in the NBA in just 30 minutes with Locked On NBA. Locked On NBA is your daily NBA update in just 30 minutes. And as always, we thank you for making Locked On Spurs your first listen each and every day. So for Joe Garcia, who will never wear a Kawhi Leonard jersey in San Antonio, I am Jeff Garcia. We're going to put a lock on this episode of Locked On Spurs.